Thinking about a curricular approach at a divisional level can be daunting, challenging, and maybe even feel overwhelming. I recently concluded a series where I talked with 12 different functional area leaders about how they're creating their educational plans for their divisional curricular approach. Some of them were considering this approach, some of them were launching it, and some of them were evolving this. Today I want to share with you 10 lessons from this series that we just completed. I've been fortunate enough to work with more than 100 different organizations on their curricular approach. And particularly recently, that's almost always with divisional curricular approaches. It used to be departmental and really housing and residence life curricular approaches. But more and more folks are doing this as a division. They're either going from housing and residence life to a divisional approach, or they're starting and saying, why don't we just start with a divisional approach? I've also written about a curricular approach with some great colleagues. There's an About Campus piece called Shifting to a Curricular Approach and the Curricular Approach in Student Affairs book. I also work every year with a cohort of about 20 different schools where we do monthly meetings. Monthly, I bring that cohort together, and monthly, I share a curricular approach highlights video with them. In this May series, I was able to bring together about a dozen different schools, most of which I had worked with before and been a part of that cohort, but a few were new and were thinking about what this might look like for their division. So here are 10 lessons that we learned through these conversations. Number 1, don't create departmental outcomes. You want one curricular approach. You want a curricular approach for your division, so you have one set of learning aims, an ed priority, learning goals, learning outcomes, narratives, and rubrics. You want one set of those learning aims. And one of the places where people mess this up is they feel like we did that as a division, now we also need to do this as a department. I think they're often just feeling like they want to hold up their end of the bargain. It actually is a lot of work, and all it does is get in the way. So don't create department level learning aims. Have every department in different ways contributing to those divisional learning aims. The second lesson is to avoid perfectionism. Don't let perfect be the enemy of good. Many folks will have heard me talk about a curricular approach, the launch at 40%, which is a really important lesson. Do your best thinking. Don't be frivolous. Do your best thinking. See what works, learn from it, and keep moving forward. Number 3, design for the ideal and build in reality. Imagine if everything was going our way, what could this look like for students? We do this and we do this in this way and we do that. And imagine that and design, and then build it for the reality of the limitations of the facilities, of the staff, of the limited resources, about your location, about whatever the case might be. Number 4, rubrics sequence the learning, sequencing charts sequence the engagement. This can be confusing because both are talking about sequencing learning. But the rubrics say to learn this thing, you first need to do this, and then maybe this and this and this. Maybe 3 to 4 things. And the sequencing chart are what happens in an ed plan, and that's where we say to help the students progress in their learning, we're going to engage them in this, and then we're going to engage them in this way about that, and then this. And you're sequencing out the engagement, whereas the rubrics sequence out the learning. So related and connected, but that's an important distinction. Another thing we talked about often in this series is number 5, moving from the wilderness to a true curricular approach. Sometimes we're not sure what the strategies or the engagement or the sequencing should be, and we just end up letting the staff, whether that's professional staff or student staff, kind of do whatever they want. And that's not really a curricular approach. However, that's where you're at. That's where you're at. I call this the wilderness. We're letting a bunch of people just kind of come up with whatever they think is best. But don't just do that forever, because that's not really a curricular approach. But let that happen maybe for a year and see what works and what doesn't. And then maybe the next year you say, here are 10 things that we saw work last year. Choose from one of the 10. So we go from do anything you want to a menu of 10 things. And then watch what of those 10 things really work and don't work. Or maybe the next year you're offering a menu of like 3 things to choose from. And then maybe the next year you say, this is really what's working. This is really what's delivering for our learners, and this is really what makes sense for our staff. So go from the wilderness to a true curricular approach. Number 6 is backward design. We've got to really begin with the end in mind, rather than thinking, what do we do? And then what do students get out of it? And how do we write learning goals and outcomes that match that? We really want to reverse that. We want to think, what do we want students to learn? What experiences do they need to have to learn that? And then what are we going to do so they have those experiences so they learn that thing? We have to begin with the end in mind, backward design. Number 7, choose learning outcomes to guide how you think and rethink your work. Now, in a divisional approach, we have maybe 12 or 20 different learning outcomes. And then each function, office, or department is contributing to a few of those, not all of those. And the idea is if any unit said, which of these do we get at some point in our time, you'll list all of them. And that can be tempting because you feel very important and very needed and very justified in your busyness. But it won't provide you with great guidance, direction, and clarity. What you want to do is choose a small number of those learning outcomes that will really guide how you would think and rethink your work. And if you can find a narrow number of those learning outcomes, sometimes it's 3 or 4 or 6 or 8, there's not a right number, but you want the fewest that you can get away with and all the ones that you need. Number 8, you don't have to change everything, but you do have to be willing to rethink everything. You can't say before you create your ed plan, we're willing to rethink these things, but these things are absolute musts, they will stay. You have to be willing to rethink everything. And that can be challenging because we love what we're familiar with. But if you can really do that, most people find on the other side of rethinking everything, a third will stay exactly as is because it really works. A third will stay but will change in some way. And a third we can let go of and replace with some new ideas. You don't have to change everything, but you do need to be willing to rethink everything. Number 9, systematizing can help us be more personalized. This sounds counterintuitive, but how could we provide structure and systemization that helps us be more personalized? This is really helpful in realms where it's one-on-one, maybe disability services or conduct or care or BIT teams. We might say to ourselves, but every student is different. And that's true. But there are some categories that students fall into, and if we could organize ourselves around those categories, it won't cover every student or every situation, but it might help us be more systematized in how we communicate with those students with some templates that really fit for them, might create some flow so we can collaboratively come together with the best ways we engage students in those topics and those conversations. And maybe there's things we say, we have to cover this with every single student we meet with, so we only have this much time to really hear about their issue and help them, and it's really rushed. So we don't have time to do all this. Well, if there's things that you're saying to every single student you meet with, why isn't that a video that the student gets sent when they schedule with you to watch before they meet with you? It's something they could watch before they meet with you, they could rewatch, they could share it with their families, they could watch it again in 6 weeks when the issue comes up again. There's some systematizing things that can help us be more present, more student-centered in our work. And number 10, let the reactive busyness we feel is an obstacle inform proactive strategies. So if you're too busy to do some of these things because you're so busy responding to this, how could we get ahead of that? We're never going to get ahead of it entirely and eliminate all that reactive work. But what if we could reduce it from 100 roommate complaints to 70? That would really free up time. What if we could reduce it from 1,000 flu cases each January to 600? That would really free up time, be better for everyone. If we can do this, we can notice some of the patterns and trends we see often and eat up a lot of our time and get ahead of it, at least a little bit, which is often better for us as staff and better for the students themselves. So those are the 10 lessons that are really standing out to me after these 13 different conversations. We had an overview session and then 12 conversations in different functional areas. If you're considering your curricular approach, I can help you with a foundation session that helps you really get a curricular approach and consider if this is something you're ready to commit to going forward. If you've made that decision and you're ready to launch your curricular approach, I can help you with a workshop series to really help you get that going in a powerful way with everyone on board, shared understanding, and help you move through that process. This can be both virtual and in person, and now often a little bit of both. If you already have your curricular approach launched and you're evolving it, that's where I help folks with this ongoing support, monthly coaching calls with me, monthly group meetings, and monthly curricular highlights. If you are interested in any of these aspects of a divisional curricular approach or even a department one, let's connect. Let's talk about how this might serve you going forward.